Hi there, and welcome to the Home Studio Rescue here on YouTube. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to be talking to you about adding drum triggers to your drums. Now, I usually try to get the mix sounding as good as I can with just the raw drum tracks, and I also try to track the drums if I am tracking them. I try to get them to a place where maybe I won't have to use triggers. But normally I do. There's only been a couple of songs really where I haven't at least blended triggers into the original drums. So we went through EQ on this before, but I'm just going to play what I have going for you right now. And so I'm going to play, this is with triggers blended in. Here we go. I'm just going to mute them so you can hear the difference. And so these are adding a lot of volume, and they're also adding some punch. And so normally I do use Slate's Trigger, Steve Slate. I've been using that for about 10 years. And, for me, I got Slate Triggers probably like 2 or 3 months into my mixing and or starting to mix. And for me, it was like, wow, it was one of those things where I guess it gave me insight into how bad my drums actually sounded. But it also gave me something to shoot for. But there was a point when I would be recording my own music where I got lazy to the point where I would just put a 57 in the kick drum, knowing that I was going to trigger it later. It was like, what was the point? But eventually I got past that where I actually started trying to get the best sounding drums I could from the start. And so yeah, for me, it was an aha moment. It was like, wow, this kick drum, and I've added some EQ to it. And here's with the EQ, just giving it a little more point. And so for me, with stuff like the triggers for kick and snare, I'm trying to add some, like for the kick, I'm adding some thump and some low end. Like if I put the kick drums together, here, I'll take this is what I had. It's just kind of wimpy. And there's some body and some thump and some low end, and really it's hard to beat that. I have done it, I have mixed songs where I have beat the triggers and I don't need them, or it just sounds good without them. But in a home studio setting, they can be really helpful, especially when you're in a room that isn't meant for recording drums or whatever. No matter how much treatment you do or whatever, there's nothing like recording drums in a real studio. But when you can't do that and you have to record them in a bedroom or wherever you are, basement, these triggers can really kind of bring them to life. And there's some other tricks as well that I have for kind of adding that studio sound that I haven't gotten to, but I'll make a video on that as well. So for this video, I actually went through and picked out different triggers here. If I go to the browser, I just kind of went through each trigger and found the one that fit the kick drum I already had, or at least, it doesn't have to be a perfect match or anything, but I just went through and just found the best kick drums I could, or the ones that would match well. And so this is what we got. And so it's just a big improvement. Now, and with the snare drum, I did go through, I'll show you a couple, some of the stuff I'm doing here as well, but let's take off this. So I just wanted something with a little bit of pop. And also, I find with the Slate triggers, I have this little plug-in here. They have a way to flip the phase, but every time I was going through a different preset or whatever, it would turn off my flip all phase. So I just put a phase plug-in on, because for this, it does sound like I need, like when I flip it out, it's hard to tell, but I feel like without the flipping the phase, it's out. So I put a phase plug-in on. I went in through, I found this Chili snare drum. It's one of the Trigger presets right there, Chili. But I have a couple of different kits. I even make my own samples when I'm recording a drum set. So it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of things you can do, but Trigger is a really cool software. I definitely recommend getting it if you're going to be mixing drums or recording drums from home. It can just add that punch, which is right now, I mean, the Chili snare it's got some snap to it and everything. And I went in with an EQ and just kind of beefed it up. I mean, it's also louder, but I'm throwing some EQ on it as well, right here at about 298, but it's pretty wide. Also, this is an awesome EQ, the Infinity EQ. I'm really enjoying using this, but really I'm just brightening it up a good bit, giving it a little bit of body, and then I'm also using a Monster, it's like an 1176 all button mode compressor, and that's just giving it snap. And so we'll hear it in context now. Without the triggers. And so it just adds, for the kick drum, I mean, it's adding that power to it. It's really just giving it a big thump. And with the snare drum, it's, you know, even though it's a really sizzly trigger sound, a sample, and all that, it's giving this, it's still punching it through. The actual snare drum does have some of that. I mean, I feel like I matched the trigger pretty well, but when I put that trigger in, it's cutting through the mix the way I really want it to. And so this is just, you know, I've EQ'd the drums. I even, you know, I have I have my plugins frozen here in Pro Tools. You can just, so they're not, because I keep getting these errors every time I record one of these videos. Pro Tools does not like the software I use for that. But so I've got my EQ and all that stuff for my drums. I got a basic sound. I've added triggers. The next thing is probably going to be parallel compression. I have a couple different ways I do that. I'm also going to be adding like a room sound to the drums. And yeah, I mean, this is like, you know, step 2 for me is getting the triggers in there and getting them sounding good and kind of matching them up with the kit, which I feel like they're doing that. And so this is the start of, this is a recording that was done in a basement. And for me, this is one of those things to starting to get it to sound like professional drums, like drums that were done in a studio. Some people are really against triggers, or you know, some people love to just put them in and replace everything. I used to do that, and I feel like it sounds unnatural when I listen to those recordings. I can tell. For the kick drum, maybe not, but with the snares, I can definitely tell. So it's good to get a nice source sound, which this was decent. You know, we recorded more drums for this project since, and I think we're getting better every time. But these triggers are definitely helping punch through the mix and give that presence that the kick and snare need. So, you know, that's going to do it for today. If you guys have any questions, or, you know, if you guys have any preferences, I'd love to hear in the comments below what you guys like as far as like how you do triggers or don't do triggers or handle samples or whatever you like to do. I'd like to hear your opinion, what you think of Slate Digital's triggers or Steven Slate triggers. Some people are for them, some people are against them, but to me, it's it's a no-brainer. It's probably about a $200 plugin, and I would just buy it. And just the stuff it comes with, it just instantly helps. So thank you so much for watching, and that's going to do it.